Hey guys, it's Ryan. I just want to catch you up on what we did today in class. It's Wednesday, March 16th, week 5. If you go to class, the class site, and click on Leaders for Justice, what we did today was I introduced a new graphic organizer that we'll be using the rest of the class. And if you click here, where my mouse is, you can't see it, where it says exemplar. That's one that I've completed, and to the right where it says Movement Graphic Organizer, that is a blank. So what I want to do is just talk you through the exemplar that we went over today. And basically here's what it's going to look like. At the top is going to be the name of the movement. It's got to be specific. So for example, the civil rights movement is way too vague. It's got to be a specific action that was taken. So for example, the lunch counter sit-ins would be a great example. A bad example would be the civil rights movement. That's just too big. The one I used for my example is the farm workers movement. So basically, it should go relatively in order. You can see I don't always have complete sentences. This is mainly for you to keep track of these complicated things that are going on, just for you to put information in the right box so that you can reference it later. So the historical context is anything that's going to be background knowledge, anything that's going to be essential for us to understand. So you can see what I have here. One thing that's really essential to understand is that the farm workers are not alone. The civil rights movement is going on at the time. So that's a really, really big thing to take note of for us to fully understand the farm workers movement with Cesar Chavez. The time period can just be a range of years. Don't get too specific. The location as well. In our case, it started in Delano, California, but then it spread nationwide. You know, it actually spread throughout North America as well, so you can make that change. The problem or the issue is basically where you identify what's the thing that is mobilizing people to take action. So in this one, we have a lot of examples of the conditions farm workers were subjected to. The next line, the oppressor or oppressors and the oppressed. The oppressors are basically who is creating the problem, who is keeping the oppressed down. So in our example, the growers are the obvious oppressors, but I also added another oppressor to mine. I thought just the political or the legal systems that allow workers to be treated this way are kind of almost like, you could say, they're like an accessory to the crime. You know, they're kind of like secondary oppressors. And then if you go to the right, are the people who are being oppressed, in this case, are farm workers. The big thing here is I want you to explain how or why the oppressed people are being oppressed. So I added a few details like the poor working conditions are taking away people's dignity. You could add you know, it's unhealthy working conditions, being sprayed with chemicals and not having water. You could also, I also wrote here, it's just difficult to be economically self-sufficient, to be, you know, on your own, to be self-reliant financially. Okay, the next two are pretty easy. The leaders, you know, try to identify 1 to 3 prominent people in the leadership of the movement. And then on the right, the participants, if you look, oftentimes the oppressed people are going to be participants, obviously, but they may bring other people in. So we see all these other people, from politicians to college students to religious groups to partner unions that are showing their solidarity, all the people that are participants. Here's probably the most important part of the organizer. What I want you to do is identify your methods of nonviolent action that are used. Ideally, I'd love them to be chronological, so you can see the first step that the farm workers took was they had a farm workers strike. And the number right here is going to be like the number 100 of before farm workers strike. That's going to be from our list of nonviolent methods of nonviolent action. It's on this heavy yellow paper that I handed out today. There's a list of 198. So I want you to identify what's the action, what's the method being used, and then if you follow the arrow on the right, it shows the outcome. So I want you to tell me, was that method successful, unsuccessful, kind of in the middle? So for example, by the farm workers striking, the outcome or the effect was that the growers were forced to hire replacements that were called scabs. So basically replacement workers. And you can kind of follow my logic through all of this. The very final part of the graphic organizer is the short and the long term outcomes. So for the short term, what we're looking to do there is I want to know, how did this movement resolve? How did it end? Did the demonstrators get what they had set out to achieve? And if they didn't get everything they wanted, that's totally okay, but just tell me in this box what was achieved. So in our case with Cesar Chavez, the workers, they first make a partnership with a packer, a fruit packer, and then finally other growers kind of come on board when they see that that's kind of the only way. So they agree to make these improved working conditions. The legacy or the long-term memory, what I'm driving at there is, how does history view this movement? Even if it's just a recent movement a few years ago, what is the lasting memory of it? So for example, with Cesar Chavez, he kind of goes down in history as kind of a guy that's up there with Dr. King and Gandhi, a leader of nonviolent ideals. He's an icon in the Mexican American and Latin American world. He's almost like I said in class. He's almost like an MLK type of figure. Like MLK is to the black community, that Cesar Chavez is to the Latino community. So I hope this gives you guys a good understanding of what we're going to do. Every new movement we look at, we're going to complete one of these, and this is going to be kind of like your library of movements to help you keep track. In addition to our 4-column notes, which I'll touch on really quickly, the 4-column vocabulary, we're going to just keep working on identifying new methods, and you'll put those new methods in your vocabulary packet. And the very last thing that we'll do is, if you happen to miss class when we discuss a new method that we're adding to our toolbox, what you can do is come right here, and let's make this big. There we go. So what I've done is I have this shared Google Slides presentation that you can access right here. And it literally just goes through the methods that we've discussed, so you can page through very easily. All right, let me know if you guys have any questions. Thanks.